Good evening, guys. Welcome to seems to be traditional now science seminar. My name is Dr. Silverman. I practice surgical pathology, or as you may call it, laboratory oncology. I subspecialize in breast cancer, and I'm a very proud Lifevantager for the last 5 years. Blessed to be in this company, changed my life. And today, Marisa Harrelson, who brought me on this journey, is on the call. So thank you, Marisa. I would like to wish every one of you happy holidays. And some of us happy Hanukkah. It's starting tomorrow, and upcoming Christmas, obviously. And however, we are continue with the science seminars. The next one is next Monday. Let's get going. So I'm very excited today and very blessed. One of my co-presenters is incredible, amazing Dr. Nancy Bryan, who is a doctor of pharmacology. Amongst multiple credentials, Nancy is a researcher. She is basically a practitioner. She created drugs. She researched drugs. She's very well versed in animal pharmacology as well. She's just an amazing educator of health. Now, to me, to have a doctor of pharmacology on science seminar is incredibly not only motivating, it's stimulating, because pharmacologists or pharmacists are the ones that know drugs through and through. However, if I have a doctor of pharmacology who supports natural nutritional medicine and is being a part of Lifevantage, to me, it's the most incredible validation. Not only Dr. Bryan is basically a clinician and a researcher, but Nancy also has a tremendous personal story. She is a multiple cancer warrior, and Lifevantage is definitely a part of this story. So Dr. Bryan, please welcome to the seminar, and Nancy, it's all yours. Take it over, if I only manage to flip the slides.
Thank you so much, Sveta. I just am so honored to be able to be part of the science seminar. I am humbled by your introduction. Honestly, I think we're both on the same path. We truly care about people. We truly care about the health of the individuals. And ultimately, this is about giving people the chance to have their body operate at the optimum ability that it has its full potential to do. And no matter what part of science you're coming from, I think we all came from the background of having the hope of really being able to improve people's lives. And ultimately, that has brought us both to Lifevantage. And I feel very privileged to be here and very grateful, because it's made such an impact personally for me and my health and my future. Because with the type of cancer that I had, as you know, I didn't have a real promising future. And now it's bright. And I feel that my body is optimized for however long it is that I'm to be here. But I am so grateful for being able to feel healthy again and strong, and to be able to get out and to make a difference for so many other people. So that's what we're here about today. We're talking today about the ability to be able to talk to our DNA. And as you were trained and I was trained early on, we thought it was very difficult to be able to change our DNA. And what we found now is that except for a very tiny amount of it being set, we have the ability through lots of different means of affecting our DNA in either a positive way or a negative way. And that's what we want to be able to talk to you about today, What we first want to talk about is the fact that when we first start talking about our health, we're talking about the ability of the body to remove toxins. We have toxins that destroy things in our body, and our body should be able to be in control of that. It should be able to take care of all of those toxins that come in. But things happen and we're not able to do that anymore. So what we see is we see a disease process that starts happening when we have genetic and environmental factors coming together. The environment aspect is a much greater significance now than we thought it was in the past. And the cellular deficiencies lead to a lot of things that are broken. When we take a look at what does oxidative stress actually do. Look at all of the different things that it affects. It can affect our immune system, our brain, our heart, our skin. All of these things are affected by free radical damage, and that's why it's so important for our body to be able to handle the free radicals and to take out our trash. When we take a look, we say, is your bucket overflowing? We're talking about all the different things that can be occurring, and what we'll see is that inflammation will show up as different things: brain fog, high blood pressure, digestive problems, dizziness, diabetes, depression, all kinds of different things that can occur with hormone dysregulations, and all of those things are because we're not controlling inflammation, the toxins, and the things that are going on in our cells. So what can we do? When we take a look, we see several reasons for oxidative stress. We can have an increase of endogenous and exogenous. Those are things from the outside and the inside. Depletions of molecular mass antioxidants that are not taking care of things, our own body's abilities. We see our own enzymes not activated. We see a decrease in the production of those enzymes. And finally, when we get all of those things happening at the same time, we get a massive amount of oxidative stress. So what we're talking about today is the ability to be able to change that by an activation of a pathway. That pathway is called the NRF2 pathway, and its activation allows your own body to naturally produce its own antioxidants. So what we're going to do is we're not going to take antioxidants, we're going to make them. And the reason we want to do that is that NRF2 pathway is our thermostat. The NRF2 pathway is what's going to be what regulates all of these enzymes, all of the pathways protecting our cells. It's what helps us to prevent aging. It helps with the responsiveness to our NRF2. And what we see is the ability for this NRF2 pathway, according to Washington State University, it's the master regulator of detoxification, anti-inflammation, and cytoprotective mechanisms. And that's why they claim it is the most extraordinary therapeutic and preventative breakthrough in the history of medicine. Now think about all the kinds of breakthroughs we've had in our history, and they're saying this is the most. So that's how important this NRF2 is. When we take a look at it, let's take a look at it from the perspective of neurodegeneration. We see so many different processes that are happening these days with the fact that when you have the oxidative stress occurring, you're going to see inflammation and all kinds of mitochondrial function destroyed. All of those things go into play so that our cells don't have the ability to function properly. And when you get neural degeneration, you see things like multiple sclerosis. You see all different kinds of things that can occur. And basically, when we see the disease activity progressing, the NRF2 pathway is what has to be taken into consideration, especially when we look at glutathione. Glutathione is one of the most impactful of all of the processes in our body. It is our strongest antioxidant. It is what really helps the protection of our nerves and the protection of our cells in general. And so when we're taking a look at things like the dimethyl fumarate in some of the studies that we've seen from some of the drugs that are out there, we actually see where the NRF2 pathway is what they're trying to take a look at. And we have the ability that is going to affect that pathway better than a physical drug, better than a pharmaceutical drug can do, without any of the side effects. And that's in their own studies. when they're having a study paid for by a pharmaceutical company, and that is their conclusion, believe me, they are not happy. They were not happy with those complete, when they completed the study, to have that come out as their final summary. They did not want to publish it, but it was published anyway. And so when they're saying it's the most therapeutic option in MS, we have so many people with MS now. And while we say we can't treat, mitigate, or cure, this is their studies showing that this is the most promising ability to help with that. And we see that impact in so many people with multiple sclerosis.
That's awesome, Nancy. Just to clarify to the guys, what Nancy said, that thing, this blurb I took from one of the studies. So dimethyl fumarate is actually Tecfidera. And we know that Tecfidera is FDA approved NRF2 activator. And exactly what Dr. Bryan said, that the side effects of the drug are horrendous. And there are 2 studies to prove that actually NRF2 nutraceutical protandim is more therapeutically suited for this most severe form of multiple sclerosis as relapsing remitted multiple sclerosis. And, NRF2 nutraceuticals that we propagate, protandim, has no side effects. How great it is. Sorry, Dr. Bryan, I interrupted.
No, thank you, because I think it's important that we clarify and make sure people understand the importance of it. Especially when we see studies, one thing I'd like to bring up is many times we see lots of different studies, and in the case of Tecfidera even, they didn't have their brand name there. They have the chemical entity. Just like many other studies show, they'll have natural ingredients. Our product, when it's being tested, is used by trademark name. And that's so important because when you're taking Protandim, it is what was tested. That's extremely important for people to understand the differences between that and when people kind of just make a connection between an herbal product that's being tested. That's a significant difference in what we see with all kinds of studies with natural products.
That's amazing. Thank you.
And then when we go on and take a look again at the neurodegenerative portion, let's look at inflammation that develops in the brain. We see such an increase in Alzheimer's disease today. So much of that has to do with the fact that we're seeing more and more free radicals being generated due to inflammation. And when we see that, we're seeing amyloid plaques that are being developed. That will kill neurons faster and it quickens the spread of the disease. So we want to be able to stop that. So when you take a look at the results, we see an overlap in the process of the brain. And when we did this with NRF2 deficient mice, old people, and what we saw was that the NRF2 pathological process is a really big portion of their problem. That NRF2 deficiency aggravates learning, memory deficits, and that's the most important part is, wanting to be able to learn, to continue to learn is the process of the brain. I don't care how old you are, we want to always continue to be learning. And so it's really important to understand that. Also, we wanted to bring up that there is another NRF2 activator that just recently has been approved. And the thing that's interesting is it's thought to be a free radical scavenger, and it's reporting that it's doing the elimination of the lipid peroxidase. They have it as a cellular target. It's meant for ALS. The thing that's important to understand here is even though they've done all of this work and there's claiming that it mitigates oxidative injury, they really still do not know for sure if it works. And here's a drug that's $140,000 a year, and their data is not comprehensive. It's literally, the mechanism is unknown, and yet there's a plethora of side effects. And here we have something that we know is proven without the side effects. And so we're going to continue to see pharmaceutical products being brought out that are going to be affecting this NRF2 pathway, because this is big. When you have a university stating it's the biggest breakthrough in history in medicine and prevention, that's going to be a huge target, but it doesn't mean that they're going to attain it. And that's a big part of why we're so excited about what we're talking about tonight.
The interesting thing about this drug that it basically was somewhat on the market for the last almost 30 years, since 80s, and only now it has been approved by FDA. So it just tells you where we are, how far advanced we are, but it also tells us and tell people that we need to be patient. People don't know anything about us. People don't know us. So, and we are coming. It does take time. We are absolutely now, we're open the doors, we're on the market, and we're safe, we are amazing, and we're better. So let me just today, before the lecture, I always like to run a little bit of a literature search and to see where we are, to keep the excitement why NRF2 activation is so critically important in support of that statement that this is a master regulator of health. So this is one of the recent studies. You see 2017, NRF2 is a potential therapeutic target against free radical damage in corneal diseases. We always talk about NRF2 and macular degeneration. Now we can talk about corneal diseases, and we know that our eyesight is not getting better with aging. So, and the same thing, this is another, again, look, this study was published last month, 2017, November. NRF2 is hard protection of free radical damage or oxidative stress. So guys, see where we are and why two doctors are so very excited to talk about it. I sort of took over it. Sorry, Nancy.
No, I love it. It works for me.
You always get
so excited.
Always get me excited. That synergy, that camaraderie always plays a part in the presentation. So guys, now moving right along from the cellular activation and cellular detoxification through this NRF. One factor, we are going into the mitochondrial function. We are just introducing the NRF1 pretendum, mitochondria. Mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. Mitochondria, look at the functions of the mitochondria. Look how critically important it is. Mitochondria takes care of our genes. Look at this. Chromatin, our DNA remodeling. Transcriptome change, meaning it takes care of the transcription of our genes, how our genes are going to synthesize the enzymes or the proteins or antioxidants or whatnot. Now, look at this. Of course, it is also affected. See how majorly mitochondria is affected by free radical damage, but also that mitochondria on its own is a major cellular producer of free radicals. Look at this. Look at another function of mitochondria is literally a cellular police. Mitochondria, normal, healthy mitochondria, recognizes bad cells and gives a signal. You see programmed cell death. It gives a signal to evaporate or to kill those bad cells. Look, mitochondria takes care of calcium metabolism. Why do we talk about mitochondria and heart health? Because many factors, but amongst this, calcium metabolism, as well as mitochondria also take care of our heme or iron metabolism. Again, very, very important. Now, look, I already mentioned that mitochondria is very vulnerable to free radicals. Why are we so excited about NRF2 activation? Because minimizing this constant, relentless free radical damage is going to keep mitochondria functional and active and healthy. Because as you see, mitochondria is like a canary in a coal mine. It's naked, it's unprotected, it's vulnerable to the cellular damage and to free radical damage. So you may recognize some of the symptoms of mitochondrial dysfunction, and this what strikes me: 50 to 80% of autistic kids have a mitochondrial dysfunction. How severe it is, how pronounced it is. So this is another, so, you know, going along with my sort of update and research before the lecture, this is the last paper on mitochondrial. What is mitochondrial biogenesis? Mitochondrial biogenesis is basically how we make new mitochondria. So look, as Nancy was talking to you about neurodegenerative disorders, Alzheimer's, Parkinson, Huntington disease, cerebral stroke, all these diseases need to upregulate their mitochondria. And again, look at this. Everybody's looking for a drug. Activation of mitochondrial synthesis is a novel therapeutic target. Well, guess what? We already targeted it. We have a mitochondrial boost. Not only we have a mitochondrial boost, we have a 1-2 punch. This is what is absolutely critical for cellular health. A, we need our NRF2 activator to clean the cellular garbage, to turn on our survival genes. NRF2 upregulates over 600 survival genes. Changing or eliminating cellular damage is going to keep the old mitochondrial functioning. NRF1 per tandem is going to stimulate the production of new mitochondria. So you see how critically important is those two in their synergy, in their togetherness. The sort of, you know, the mantra of Lifevantage is that synergy comes across. Now, let me tell you a couple words about the True Science regimen. And today we're going to discuss less of the cosmetic element, more as the health benefit of this tremendous, as you see, clean skincare regimen. How important it is to have a cream or the series of creams that are formaldehyde free. You know, I'm a pathologist. I deal with formalin on a daily basis. I don't want it from the outside world. I got enough of it. How important it is to have something that is paraben free, no GMO, no artificial colorants, and no mineral oil. Your skin products have to be as clean as your food is. Now, look at this. Why our True Science regimen, again, is so critically important, because what it is basically, every product, whether it's a cleanser, whether it's a perfecting lotion, or as Marisa calls it, velvet water, or it's an eye serum or combination of proteins, or the anti-aging cream, all of them are built on a pretandem. The formulation of this, the backbone is those 5 botanicals: turmeric, ashwagandha, green tea, bacopa, and milk thistle. And all of these 4 are basically the NRF2 activators. Why is it so important for the skin? Well, guess what, guys? Didn't you notice that the skin of a 5-year-old is rather different from the skin of a 60-year-old, and definitely is more different than the skin of an 80 or 90-year-old? Because the nutrition and the oxidative damage of the 6-year-old skin versus the old skin is completely different, and the protection is different. NRF2 is very, look at this blood supply to the skin, and as you see, the blood supply comes from the deep to the surface. But where do we have the damage? Where do we have the stress? The stress occurs on the surface. That's where we need the most of this NRF2 protection. See, high free radicals, low free radicals, surface, depth. However, when we have a deficient blood supply, the older we live, the blood supply to the skin surface is getting less and less and less. So that's why we need to have some sort of an application to upregulate the NRF2 on the surface of the skin. That is exactly why True Science Regimen is so amazing. Look at this picture. So this is what I call excitingly pathologic abnormal, and this is boringly normal, because look at these cells. This is 7 days of the application of NRF2 anti-aging cream. Look how beautiful the cells are arranged. It's like a picket of soldiers. It's like a row after row after row, and every cell is identical to each other. So that kind of arrangement, that kind of brick, or almost like a honeycomb structure, will allow the communications between cells and will allow the conveyance of nutrients between those cells. However, look at the retinol. Look how different the cells are. They definitely not communicating right. Some cells are bloated, some cells are shrunken. There is a cellular disarray, and that is exactly that's the way the cells are going to communicate. This is not healthy. This is not good. So these are some pictures. So look at this. So look at this scar. This was a burn on obviously a colored skin individual. And what happened is, in a dark skin, the pigmentation after healing is not really normal. Either they heal with a very pronounced, what is called hypertrophic or keloid scars, and they will heal with hyperpigmentation or hypopigmentation. However, look at this 6 month of the True Science Regimen, there is no scar. So this is psoriasis. Mind you, we don't treat, cure, and mitigate diseases, but these are the amateur pictures. I know the name of this kid. And some of people who are on this call, they actually know the name of this individual with psoriasis. So, Dr. Bryan, I know that you love to talk about microgut.
I do, because the one thing that we know for sure is we got to be able to get these great nutrients into our bodies. And as things are going through our digestive tract, if we don't have a healthy digestive tract, right away we're going to have problems being able to utilize some of the things we've already talked about. We want to be able to have a good communication between our gut and our brain, and we want to be able to utilize nutrients as we take them in from both our foods and from these great products. So when we're talking about probio, I hear all the time, oh, well, I'm already on a probiotic. Let me explain the difference between what is currently available out there and what this is, because there's no comparison. This is made with something called BioTrack. How something is made, that's my business. That's what I do. I know how to formulate and put it together. And when you don't put it together properly, it's not utilized properly. BioTrack is going to ensure that we get 60% through the stomach acid. I don't care what the numbers are in terms of what probiotics are out there, but when you're only getting an average of 4% through the stomach acid, you're not going to get the proper probiotics to the right place. The secondary thing is that BioTrack is also going to be happening in a time-released fashion, so that it's going to be taking the proper probiotic and putting it in the proper place. Where you put certain types of probiotics matter. You can actually cause illness if you don't have the proper probiotics in the right places. It's important to put lactobacillus in the small intestine. It's important that you're not putting bifidus up in that area. You want it down in the lower tract where it belongs, or you can actually end up with infections. And in fact, I've actually heard certain doctors recently state they don't want people on probiotics. That is why. Because when they're taking probiotics, they're opening up and becoming available in the stomach acid, and who knows where they're going and how they're being deposited. So this BioTrack protection is extremely important, and it's going to also help to make sure that it's where the biome is going to be able to start developing. It's going to get into that digestive tract and make a home. It needs to be in there for a while and available when we have all these different things happening. And the secondary thing that we have involved in it is also Wellmune. Wellmune is a beta-glucan. What that's going to do is it's going to stimulate natural killer cells. That is our immune system in the nutshell. It's there to protect. It keeps our autoimmune diseases at bay, and it's our white blood cells being stimulated, but not overstimulated. They're doing it in an educated fashion, if you will. And that's really important. Those are things you're not going to get in a regular probiotic. And so it's really ultimately important, because through those mechanisms, you're going to be able to take the mitochondria and have those mitochondria developing our neurotransmitters for our brain. This is going to be your area where all of our sugars are communicated between our pancreas and our liver and determining what happens with our blood sugars. All of those types of things happen in our gut. And without having the gut health that we need to have, it's really difficult for us to really truly have optimum health. And investing in these products, it's really important to understand that this is just part of the system, part of the process. And then we have Axio. Remember, we talked about the gut brain. Well, this is the brain portion. This is where we're going to be making the neurons communicate in our brain. And what I love is that it's a boost of energy, but not with jitters. It's a calm energy, if you will. And that's because we have a blend that has a balance between the caffeine and the theanine. That theanine is what helps to keep things stable, but not overstimulating. And another thing is we have DMAE. That was shown back in the late 50s to outperform Ritalin in terms of helping kids. Take a look at this. In 1959, DMAE was demonstrated to improve test scores. When they did a double-blind placebo test with Ritalin, it had positive results that were comparable. So why would you consider using something with such severe effects of Ritalin when you know that you can be using something in your kids that helps them to focus, that helps our brains to keep from being foggy, and that it's going to help your overall optimum health? Because when your brain is functioning properly, a lot of other things take place. So it's really important when we're taking a look at this that those neurotransmitters are balanced. That happens between having that gut balance and then turning around and having Axio instead of using chemicals and sugars and all those sorts of things. We also have B vitamins in there. Those are very, very, very important, especially this time of year when you take a look at the histamines that are out when we have allergy seasons and dust from our heat coming on and all those kinds of things. The B vitamins are what keep our histamine cycle in check. They're the check and the balance of it. So when you have those B vitamins, that's going to reduce fatigue. It's going to give you a healthier energy and a better ability to be able to learn again. And that's something we want to keep. So when we take a look at this, when we talk about all of the different types of things, we want you to know and understand. I love this slide that Sveta has up here. And Sveta, you may want to talk about it a little bit, but it's my favorite slide because we're talking about all of the cells rejuvenating and rebuilding itself in less than 365 days. Go ahead, Sveta.
Well, this is just to prove that, when we talk about our products, we like people to stay on the products for years and years and not just for a couple days and not just for a month, because every organ has a different regenerative ability. So as you see the brain cells or our neurons regenerate in a year. So you've got to be on, if you want your glutathione, you've got to be on NRF to pretend for at least a year. And then you see the results and you stay on and on. Who wants to think less? I want to think more. I want to be more active with a clear brain. So as you look at the blood, so red blood cells, they have a life cycle of 120 days. Look at the bones. They have the the bone turnover every 3 months, and on and on and on. Look at our DNA. Our DNA renews every 2 months, so that's why having staying on this regimen of proper cellular upregulation, of a proper nutrigenomics, again, not even for 2 months, but for life. That's what I think is critically, critically important. So guys, the only thing is, I thought that I saved the slide on omegas, but I didn't. So maybe I will strongly encourage you to join us next Monday, where registered dietitian Joanne Scherer is going to be talking in details about our new product, omegas, with the science and basically philosophy behind essential fatty acids, why our fish oils are much better than the supplements. It's sort of in the same philosophy as our probiotics. As Dr. Bryan said, there's so many probiotics, but you need to know which is the best one to take. So the thing is, so proud to say that Lifevantage brings that purity, that brings that potency of the most pure and the best sorted out ingredients. So listen, we are great. It is 8:45, and I really wanted us to be short because having Dr. Bryan on the seminar is always incredible opportunity for you guys to ask questions. So I'm going to stop sharing. Please type your questions, and either myself or Dr. Bryan are going to address your questions. Meantime, Nancy, as always, you are such a delight. You're such a worth of knowledge. Amazing. I'm always at awe every time you bring something else. So guys, thank you. Guys, any questions?
Hi, Sveta. I have a question. On the probiotic, this is Marisa, and on the probiotic, I did a call today for Isa, and the couple, we were they bought the Nerf 1 and 2, and we tried to share the activated essentials, which is the probio, and they said, well, we already have our probio. We'd like to finish our probio before we order any more, and I shared with them why ours was different. And then they said theirs was not a capsule, it was a powder. So what my question is, I don't understand probiotics that are in a powder. What do you say to that?
It's ours.
That's
the whole thing. So
that's the same answer. That's even worse than a capsule.
That's the whole answer, because what is why the delivery rate is 4%? Because the probiotics do not, if they're not protected, or anything is not protected, it's going to be destroyed. It's going to be destroyed and deactivated by hydrochloric acid. So that's it. So if they're powderized, basically.
And Marisa, this goes back to what I was saying, that they have no means of even knowing where they're delivering what they're delivering. That is really vital when you want to take a look at really having proper GI health. We want these biomes, the homes, those probiotics, they're meant, let's face it, we want our body to be as it should be, the way it was developed to be. And what that totally is each of those areas have specific jobs and specific pHs. And so if you're just throwing a powder in there, I have no idea how they think that they're going to get certain parts of those probiotics to the regions where they need to go. There's no accountability of it, and there's no science behind that.
That's correct.
Thank you. Okay, thank you so much.
Guys, the question is, there was a question about COPD, and I lost it. Oh, no. If a patient has a COPD, should they use NRF2, NRF1, or both, and why? Nancy, let me jump on it. Absolutely. They need to be. There are multiple studies on oxidative stress and COPD. there are studies on decrease of NRF2 activation in COPD. So NRF2 is, to me, is an absolute must. We have a study in circulation on the lung fibrosis and heart failure. Obviously, COPD, people with COPD, they suffer from oxygen deprivation, so their mitochondrial functioning is absolutely decreased. Absolutely, NRF2 activation, NRF1 activation together. Yeah.
I would just like to add to that. You know what? We have the only natural substance by name in Circulation Journal. That's a cardiology, peer-reviewed, double-blind, randomized. It doesn't get any better than that kind of studies. We have the only product by trade name in that journal. And I mean, that really speaks loudly. I don't know if we can express enough how important for heart patients, for pulmonary patients, because of that antifibrolytic. And the one thing I did not touch on our NRF2 activation, one of the reasons it's so difficult for the pharmaceutical people to replace this is that for some reason, we have a pulsatile action that occurs. It's a biofeedback mechanism. When that pathway comes on, it doesn't just stay on. That's the problem with Tecfidera. That NRF2 pathway is on all the time. That's where you get the multitude of side effects because
it's dangerous.
And it becomes dangerous. Our bodies are not meant to have all of those things on all at one time. And so that's why it's so valuable in some of these severe disease cases is to have the NRF2 pathway and the NRF1 pathway activated. It's not that our product treats, prevents, or cures any of those disease states. It's your body doing what it is meant to do that helps so much with these pathways.
Awesome, awesome. So this is a question for Dr. Bryan. How can you explain that Axio box says keep out of the reach of children? I had the mother ask me that question.
Oh, I know. I get it all the time. If you live in the pharmaceutical world, you know what life is all about. It's all about studies, and they don't want anything on there that hasn't been studied. Who's going to put their children in studies? Let's face reality. That has to be on that box for the protection based on FDA and their labeling. But the reality is we have, and Sveta and I can both speak to this, we have multitudes of children that are taking it. And of course, we recommend smaller doses. We definitely recommend smaller doses. But I have one question for people. I want to know, do they go and take a look at every single study to every single juice box and thing that they allow their child to take when they go through the grocery store? We know
there's no juice in the juice box.
Yeah, it's water and chemicals. And so I understand seeing that and having some concerns. As a pharmacist, you need to know and understand the legalities of labeling. But what you do need to understand is you just saw the study from 1959 on DMAE in children with Ritalin. Now, they're giving them Ritalin, for goodness sake. They're giving them all these drugs, and they flat right out tell you they're not safe in them, but they give them anyway. And what we're telling you is these are safe. And what you just need to do is, if they're younger children, we start slow, just like I do with any people that are on certain medications. When I have kids that are on a lot of medications, we start with very diluted amounts. And that way, we're going to just take it one step at a time. All right?
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so this is a question for you. Hepatitis C, can they have milk thistle ingredient?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Hepatitis C and milk thistle.
That first part, I'm still not understanding you. What?
Hepatitis C.
Hepatitis C and milk thistle. Okay, I'm sorry. Well, here's the thing. When they're talking about milk thistle and struggles with hepatitis C, they're talking about therapeutic dosing. Our products are on a completely different premise. You have to understand that Western medicine, including naturopaths, base everything on more is better. Not by what we see in nature, not in the ratios we see in nature, but their ideas that giving, if this works, more is better. In this particular case, this is the next generation where we're starting pathways, and that happens by having subtherapeutic amounts of the herbs and products within these, and they're such small amounts that you're not going to have the effect that therapeutic amount of milk thistle would have. I have several Hep C patients on our products, and they have done extremely well. And the main reason is because it's not acting like milk thistle, it's acting like a NRF2 activator, and our own body is producing 300% increase in glutathione. That's the most healing thing that's ever happened to the liver. And so the healing portion of that is so productive in terms of the minute subtherapeutic amounts of milk thistle that it's just not the proper comparison.
Awesome. You know, so guys, this is amazing what Nancy just said. There is 225 milligrams of milk thistle in Protandim. The therapeutic concentration of milk thistle is in grams. That's
like grams. That's thousands and thousands, guys.
1,000 times more. So I think there are no more questions. So I think we are done.
Excellent.
Dr. Bryan, you were amazing as always, just amazing. And guys, again, I hope to see you all on December the 18th. Same time, same place, same Zoom. You do not want to miss incredible Joanne Scher Parker.
Amazing.
It's unbelievable.
Yes, there was one thing I just did want to add, because I've had a chance to spend a little bit of time with Dr. Brett Brimhall, and I was listening to him the other day, and something he said really stuck with me. This is a gentleman that has formulated products, spoke about products on a national basis, written books, and he talked about how his business has always been striving to find the proper nutrients so people did not have to go on pharmaceutical products to achieve their results. And he said what he's just been so taken with this is that we now have come into that next generation whereby taking a system, our NRF1, our NRF2, our probiotic, and our Omega Plus in that stack has now replaced 17 to 25 different things that he used to do to try to help with the different systems. And he said the thing that's so extraordinary is that in the past, when they're doing supplementation, they're just guessing. All of those supplements they're assuming the levels of things that they've seen are from tests from other ingredients from other places, not necessarily what's in the bottle he was dealing with, but also from a perspective of the synergy that occurs when these things are working together simultaneously and these systems become healthy. So that you need to understand we've got 4 things that are operating that are now replacing multitudes of things because of the synergy and how they all work together, making the complete system. And that's truly our definition of biohacking. Instead of letting our genes get hijacked by all the environment and all the trash and all the stress and all the things, we now have the ability to have proven products, not guess, but proven with the right amounts and the right formulations taking place and helping our bodies become optimal to what they can be.
For the fraction of cost.
For the fraction of the cost. Okay.
So guys, I think there are no more questions. So thank you guys. Thank you. Thank you so very much for taking your time during the holiday system. We keep going. We're teaching, we're working. Good night to every one of you. Happy holidays. Thank you, Nancy. See you next Monday. Ciao.
Bye.